Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine never cold, so peaceful and poetic, with a message true and bold. He's never seeking praise, so silent and so brave. The transcendental world is in the magic of his ways. When I see his love, I know got a long, long way to go. When I taste the love that he's feeling inside. He's always meek and mild, with a warm and friendly smile, so simple in his living, his singing all the while. He gives us Krishna's name, his glory and his fame, to serve his Lord and Master in pleasure or in pain. When I see his love, I know got a long, long way to go. When I taste the love that he's feeling inside. To live, and living tries to give the happiness that's found in the sound of Krishna's name. He's free of lust and greed, with the heart so pure and clean. He's the lover of the Lord, and his life is ecstasy. When I see his love, I know got a long, long way to go. When I take the love that he
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशधारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे Hare Krishna. A warm welcome to all of you on day 6 of Srila Prabhupada Lila, Matchless Gifts. What is this Matchless Gifts? It was the name of the storefront which served as an actual temple, first established temple in the United States of America, rather the first temple of the Hare Krishna movement. How did it all begin? Let us resume from where we left yesterday. So we see Bhaktivedanta Swami is living in downtown New York City, Bowery, the Skid Row of New York. You can call it a place for the most rigid people, and all are drunkard, intoxicated, but somehow Prabhupada landed up in that. But Prabhupada did not mind about the external nature of this. He started to conduct classes and immediately had plans of opening up a Radha Krishna temple in that small lot of the town. But then his roommate was crazy and Bhaktivedanta Swami, just in the middle of the day, he has noticed. And one of the students, Karl, who's Swami, he is living with him. He also was not a very rich man, he had a small place. So after a week, Karl helped Swami to connect to another student who also was looking promising. Recently, he was taking some interest in the philosophy, and his name is Mike. So, Mike, he understands the emergency of the Swami. He has belong, and he needs a place to stay, and rather a good place from where he can do all his activities. So, how does Mike help Srila Prabhupada? And Prabhupada finds Matchless gift shop. Let us try to understand. As Mike listened to the Swami's story, he felt obligated. So the next day he went to the Village Voice, got the first newspaper of the press, looked through the classified ads until he found a suitable prospect and phoned the landlord. It was a storefront on Second Avenue. Sorry. And an agent, Mr. Gardiner, agreed to meet Mike there. Carl and the Swami also agreed to come. Mr. Gardiner and Mike were the first to arrive. Mike noted the unusual hand-painted sign, Matchless Gifts, above the front window. It was a holdover, Mr. Gardiner explained, from when the place had been a nostalgic gift shop. Mike proceeded to describe the Swami as a spiritual leader from India, an important author, and a Sanskrit scholar. The rental agent seemed receptive. As soon as the Swami and Karl arrived and everyone had been congenially introduced, Mr. Gardiner showed them the small storefront. The Swami, Karl, and Mike carefully considered its possibilities. It was empty, plain, and dark. The electricity had not been turned on, and it needed repainting. It would be good for meetings, but not for the Swami's residence. But at $125 a month, it seemed promising. Then Mr. Gardiner revealed a small second floor apartment just across the rear courtyard, directly behind the storefront. Another $71 a month, and the Swami could live there, although first Mr. Gardiner would have to repaint it. The total rent would come to $196, and Carl, Mike, and others would pitch in. Bhaktivedanta Swami had the idea of making Mr. Gardiner the first official trustee of his fledgling Krishna Consciousness Society. During their conversation, he presented Mr. Gardiner with a 3-volume set of a Srimad Bhagavatam. and inside the front cover he wrote a personal dedication and then signed it, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Mr. Gardiner felt flattered and honored to receive these books from the author himself. He agreed to become a trustee of the new Society for Krishna Consciousness and so paid the society $20 a month. Mr. Gardiner took a week to paint the apartment. Meanwhile, Mike arranged for the electricity and water to be turned on and had a phone installed, and he and Carl raised the first month's rent among their friends. When everything was ready, Mike gave the Swami a call at Carl's. Now it was time to move the Swami into his new place. A few friends who were on hand accompanied the Swami over to the Bowery loft. Maybe they were not prepared to become his surrendered disciples, but contributing toward the first month's rent and volunteering a few hours of work to help set up his place were exactly the kind of things they could do very willingly. At the loft, they all gathered up portions of Swamiji's belongings, and then they started out on foot up the Bowery. It was like a safari, a caravan of half a dozen men loaded with Swamiji's things. Michael carried the heavy Robert's wheel to reel, and even the Swami carried two suitcases. They did everything so quickly that it wasn't until they were well on their way and Mike's arm began to ache that he realized, why didn't we bring a car? It was the end of June and a hazy summer sun poured its heat down into the Bowery jungle. Starting and stopping, the strange safari, stretching for over a block, slowly trekked along. Swamiji struggled with his suitcases, past the seemingly unending row of restaurant supply shops and lamp stores between Grand, Broome and Spring Streets. Sometimes he paused and rested, setting his suitcases down. He was finally moving from the Bowery. His electrician friend on the 72nd Street would have been relieved, although perhaps he would have disapproved of the 2nd Avenue address also. At least he was finished residing on Skid Row. He walked on past the homeless men outside the Salvation Army shelter, past the open door taverns, stopping at street lights, standing alongside total strangers, keeping an eye on the progress of his procession of friends who struggled along behind him. The Bowery artists and musicians saw him as highly evolved. They felt that the spirit was moving him and were eager to help him set up his own place so that he could do his valuable spiritual thing and spread it to others. He was depending on them for help, yet they knew he was on a higher level. He was his own protector, or as he said, God protected him. There was no certainty of what awaited him there, but already there had been good signs that these American young people, mad though they sometimes were, could actually take part in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. Perhaps this new address would be the place where he could actually get a footing with this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So eventually Prabhupada has now moved into the storefront. And there is a very strange thing which is happening in America at this time. It never happened before and did not continue for a long time. And the historians, socialists, they do not know why this phenomena suddenly occurred and where did it vanish. What is that phenomena? A few years before Bhaktivedanta Swami's arrival, a new kind of slum dweller had appeared on the Lower East Side. In America, people are willing to live in slums. And the Americans, not the immigrants. Although there have been many sociological and cultural analyses of this phenomenon, it remains ultimately inexplicable why they suddenly came like a vast flock of birds swooping down, or like animals in a great instinctual migration, and why after a few years they vanished. At first, the newcomers were mostly young artists, musicians, and intellectuals, similar to the hip crowd of Prabhupada's Bowery days. Then came the young middle class dropouts. Because living space was more available and rents were lower than in the nearby Greenwich Village, they concentrated here on the Lower East Side, which, in the parlance of the renting agents, became known as the East Village. Many even came without finding a place to live and camped in the hallways of tenements. Drawn by cheap rent and the promise of bohemian freedom, these young middle class dropouts, the avant garde of a nationwide youth movement soon to be known in the media as hippies, wandered to the Lower East Side slums in living protest against America's good life of materialism. So, who were these hippies and why they were living there? They were not foolish people, not less qualified people, but they were college dropouts. And many of them were intellectuals, others were artists and musicians. Why they chose such a dwelling? The hippies had turned from the suburban materialism of their parents, the inane happiness of TV and advertising, the ephemeral goals of the middle class America. They were disillusioned parents, teachers, clergy, public leaders, and the dissatisfied with American policy in Vietnam. So America had a war in Vietnam that time, and many people, even Americans, were against America for this. And allured by radical political ideologies that painted America as cruel, selfish, exploitative giant who must now reform or die. As they were searching for real love, real peace, real existence, and real spiritual consciousness. The summer of Bhaktivedanta Swami's arrival on 26 Second Avenue, the first front in the great youth rebellion of the 60s, had already entered the Lower East Side. Here they were free to live in simple poverty and express themselves through art, music, drugs, and sex. The talk was of spiritual searching. LSD and marijuana were the keys, opening realms of awareness. Notions about Eastern cultures and Eastern religions were in vogue. Through drugs, yoga, brotherhood, or just by being free, somehow they would attain enlightenment. Everyone was supposed to keep an open mind and develop his own cosmic philosophy by direct experience and drug expanded consciousness, blended with his own eclectic readings. And if their lives appeared aimless, at least they had dropped out of a pointless game where the player sells his soul for material goods and in this way supports a system that is already rotten. So this is the first step, first realization towards spirituality. When a person becomes disgusted with the regular materialistic way of life. So sometimes people wonder and they ask, how do we put faith in this Krishna consciousness? The results may or may not be there. Who knows, it is another expansion of hallucination. Like people were doing, hippies were taking LSD, marijuana and drugs. And some hallucinations would capture their mind and they would think, oh, this is spiritual life, out of body experience. We forget I am the body. In a similar fashion, your Krishna consciousness could be creating some chemicals, some neurological responses in the brain because of which you are hallucinating. And like this, so many arguments are there. But as Srila Prabhupada preached these people, so Prabhupada realized that they were very much fixed in this understanding that there is no point in material life at least. You are taking a new way, it might or might not be a good road. But this is the beaten path of materialism that we are seeing. This is definitely not a good road, but full of thorns and ditches. Why? Because what is material life? Which entire world is so much geared up to take it as a perfection of their life. Material life means creating artificial necessities in the first place. Something you do not require, but then you feel empty in life. And you think, if I get this thing, I would be happy. Those are called sense objects. So the aim of a materialist is simply to live a life of sense gratification, offer the objects what the senses desire. But then this is of no use, and this is definitely a rotten path because we can very easily understand, even the hippies understood that time. Because if you try to enjoy the sense objects, your senses want even more. As Srimad Bhagavatam very nicely explains in the shlokas, Bhagavatam is full of complete knowledge. It is like putting butter into fire. Ijjastoka ivanalaha. In anal you put butter. then what will happen? The anala fire would burn even brighter, even vigorously. So the senses, if you supply artificial needs, what the senses have? Senses were never wanting unlimited movies. Senses were never wanting so many sports occasions. All these were not existing before. Now we want to see everything on a moment's notice. And the senses want unlimited sex. Even this was not available when there were no contraceptives. If you have physical pleasures, then a child will come out. How many can you bear and raise them? So naturally, this was natural contraceptive God has arranged. But now, artificial necessities. So people are engaging in unlimited enjoyments, which only increases the desire of the senses. And thus the senses and heart burns even more. And then they want even more objects, then it burns even more. Ultimately, we all realize we all have practiced very ardently in our life. So definitely this is not the way of satisfaction. This is the way of creating a mess of our life. So this realization was there with them that this path may or may not be correct, but let us try. Who knows it is correct? But this path is definitely rotten. This they had realized. So that is why they dropped out of colleges. These colleges are useless. What were they making us? Sense gratifiers. They dropped out of all the other middle class mentalities that were prevalent at that time. And they tried wholeheartedly Krishna consciousness. Rather, Krishna consciousness also was known as hippie religion. So there were two sides to it. So the movement got many followers and those hippies became very serious devotees. But then other hippies who were doing drugs and then they were also chanting Hare Krishna, movement got a bad name. And then there were movies in Bollywood also. Dam Maro Dam, you smoke and then you chant Hare Krishna, Hare Ram. So people thought, especially when we had opened our temple in Bangalore. So reporters from a tabloid visited and they saw, if you have seen devotees, they jump so much. That is spiritual life. And for 15-20 minutes, half an hour, they would be just jumping on and on and on continuously. And no ordinary person can do like that. So they told these people definitely take drugs. We had just seen that in the movie or we have heard in the Western newspapers. But these people are definitely on drugs. Nobody can jump so much for hour-long kirtan. But they did not realize what is spiritual happiness. So then they thought Krishna consciousness, ISKCON means all these sadhus, they have drugs every day, they smoke and then they chant Hare Krishna. So anyway, but ultimately the hippies were arranged this Krishna's arrangement. If Krishna wants to do killing, he arranges all of them together and then a war is declared, just like it happened in Kurukshetra. We may kill one or two people, but when God wants to kill, then as per their karma, those living entities who also have killed other living entities, we are doing meat eating, causing unlimited harm to others, then how much ever advancement we make in science, wars, pestilence, diseases cannot be stopped. That is the nature's way of counteraction. So just like if nature wants to punish, it assembles and war, epidemic, diseases immediately presented to us. In a similar fashion, when there is a scope of spiritual advancement, Krishna again assembles all the devotees, all the prospective candidates. And thus, socialists do not know, historians do not know, but the devotees can understand that Krishna arranged this phenomena. All those people who were materially disgusted, they came in touch with the Krishna consciousness movement just at the time when Prabhupada landed there. This kind of disgust was never shown before for materialism. It was never shown afterwards. Just at that time it so happened. So this is the mercy of Lord Krishna when he wants to glorify his pure devotee who very sincerely wants to spread his message. So it was that in 1966, thousands of young people were walking the streets of Lower East Side, not simply intoxicated or crazy, though often they were, but in search of life's ultimate answers. In complete disregard of the establishment and the day-to-day life pursued by millions of straight Americans. That the prosperous land of America could breed so many discontented youths surprised Bhaktivedanta Swami. Of course, it also further proved that material well-being, the hallmark of American life, couldn't make people happy. Bhaktivedanta Swami did not see the unhappiness around him in terms of the immediate, social, political, economic, and cultural causes. So, this is what people think is the cause of distress. Either social cause, political cause, they raise agitations, want to overthrow the government. And Prabhupada tells from eternity people have been doing this. They will vote after a few years, they will vote for another government. And they will keep on changing. It means people are fools. They do not know what is right for them. If you know what is right, well, then why you are disgusted? This is the way of material life. There is no satisfaction with any government whatsoever. So many freedom movements, so many changes of the rulers have happened, but people have remained persistently dissatisfied. So people want to create social change, cultural change, but all these things Bhaktivedanta Swami did not see as the causes for their dissatisfaction. He was the wisest man who was knowing the absolute truth, not relative truth. Yes, a bad government, it is not that it is not the cause of distress. They are a cause of distress. They might have been creating distress, but that is called relative truth. What is relative truth? Because that is not ultimate reason. A thief is being arrested by a police guard not whimsically because of arrangement, because he is doing robbery. In a similar fashion, because people are sinful, devoid of Krishna consciousness, such a government is arranged by laws of nature so that people can be punished. So that is called relative truth. And relative truth, such research is very, very dangerous. That is, a human life is meant for inquiring what is absolute truth. So Bhaktivedanta Swami, who knows perfectly absolute truth, was seen beyond all these social, political, economic, and cultural causes. It was not because of poverty. They were middle class America. Middle class America is much, much rich compared to the people of any other country. It was not cultural, it was not social, neither political. Neither slum conditions nor youth rebellions were the all important realities. These were mere symptoms of a universal unhappiness to which the only cure was Krishna consciousness. He sympathized with the miseries of everyone, but he saw the universal solution. So, all the diseases that we are seeing, the COVID infection in which we are living, all the diseases, you can call it cancer, you call it tuberculosis, you call it diabetes, or anything else. These are not diseases, these are symptoms. What is disease? Disease is bodily concept of life, bhavaroga. That happens when a person forgets Krishna. So when a person is affected by this disease called bhavaroga, he contacts material energy and then he takes up material body, which is bound to get affected by diseases, old age, and death. So all these diseases, all these miseries, stress, strain, death, old age, these are the symptoms of real disease, which is called bodily concept of life or bhavaroga. So Prabhupada was knowing what is the actual disease and he only had the perfect remedy for it. One July morning, Howard Wheeler was hurrying from his apartment on Mott Street to a friend's apartment on the 5th Street, a quiet place where he hoped to find some peace. So Prabhupada started this Matchless gift shop, but then he was quite unnoticed. Some people thought it is another bookstore which has opened next to us, some yoga bookstore. And some people were just discussing, oh, somebody has taken this old gift shop. Some others were completely careless. And so much traffic passing by without paying any attention to this small shop who has come here. But by Krishna's arrangement, some very sincere souls got attracted to Srila Prabhupada. And one such person was Howard Wheeler, a professor. He walked up Mott Street to Houston. Mott Street was the place where he was living. Turned right and began to walk east across Bowery, past the rushing traffic and stumbling derelicts, and towards 2nd Avenue. Howard recollects. After crossing Bowery, just before 2nd Avenue, I saw Swamiji jauntily strolling down the sidewalk, his head held high. You know how Prabhupada walks with head held high. In air, his hand in the bead bag, and he struck me like a famous actor in a very familiar movie. He seemed ageless. He was wearing the traditional saffron-colored robes of a sannyasi and quaint white shoes with points. Coming down Houston, he looked like the genie that popped out of Aladdin's lamp. Howard, aged 26, was a tall, large-bodied man with long dark hair and profuse beard and black-framed eyeglasses. He was an instructor in English at Ohio State University and was fresh from a trip to India, where he had been looking for a true guru. Bhaktivedanta Swami noticed Howard, and they both stopped simultaneously. Howard asked first question that popped into his mind. Are you from India? Bhaktivedanta Swami smiled. Oh yes, and you? Howard. I told him no, but that I just returned from India and was very interested in his country and the Hindu philosophy. He told me he had come from Calcutta and had been in New York almost 10 months. His eyes were as fresh and cordial as a child's. And even standing before the trucks that rode and rumbled their way down Houston Street, he emanated a cool tranquility that was unshakably established in something far beyond the great metropolis that rolled around us. So anybody who met Prabhupada, he experienced this coolness, this tranquility. And sometimes some of you would have experienced as devotees, they would tell Prabhu, as soon as we come out of this lift, not we have entered the apartment, but we are just in the lobby outside. It feels a different atmosphere over here. Or sometimes when you meet with the devotees, you feel tranquility. And what to speak of Srila Prabhupada, who is a Mahabhagavata. So one devotee recollects when there was historical Rath Yatra in London and Prabhupada was very ecstatic, he was dancing. And one devotee suddenly felt goosebumps on his body and a different kind of emotion. And then he turned around to see that Srila Prabhupada was approaching here. So even before seeing Prabhupada, people were able to feel Prabhupada. So this is the influence that a pure devotee creates. It is not something merely theoretical. It is spiritual energy that they emanate and induce similar kind of feelings in other person as well. Howard never made it to his friend's place that day. He forgot to visit his friend. He went back to his own apartment on Mott Street to Keith and Wally, his roommates, and told them and everyone he knew about the Guru who had inexplicably appeared within their midst. He told how he and the Swami had stood and talked together and how the Swami had mentioned his place nearby on 2nd Avenue, where he was planning to hold some classes. The word spread, although it wasn't so easy now for Carl Jürgens and certain others to come up from the Bowery and Chinatown, the person who helped Prabhupada find this place. It was little distant for them. So some of them were not able to continue in this place and their help stopped at that moment. But some others, they continued. Roy Du Bois, a 25-year-old writer for comic books, had visited the Swami on the Bowery. And when he heard about the Swami's new place, he wanted to drop by. Like this, some people from here and there, without any fixed arrangement, did drop by and started coming to Matchless gift shop. Howard had also noticed the little sign in the window that day as he had stood with the Swami before the storefront. And the notice was very simple. Lectures in Bhagavad Gita. Read the notice in bolds. Then A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Very simple. Lectures in Bhagavad Gita, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, time 7 to 9 p.m. That's it. So Prabhupada did not try to use any artificial words, some attractive advertisement, and sometimes when devotees would like to create some kind of unique idea or activity for advertising or try to twist things, attract people in some other certain way, twisted way, or create some comic advertisement, Prabhupada told do not do that. It makes things appear less serious than they actually are. One devotee, he arranged for a comic advertisement of the movement, and yoga club was supposed to be started in some university. So then a person is standing over there with a banner of yoga club, and the crowds rush over him so much. They are so eager to participate in the yoga club and like that it was shown.
So Prabhupada told you have made things appear less serious than they actually are. So Krishna consciousness, although full of joy, it is full of activity, full of rejuvenation, but it is something very serious. So Prabhupada told there is no need of resorting to artificial means of attracting the people, but your purity is the basis. So Prabhupada was always knowing it is not by chance that you can trick somebody into Krishna consciousness or anything for that matter. Nobody can preach Krishna consciousness without being completely pure surrendered instrument in the hands of Krishna. It is Krishna's mission. And the person who is pure surrendered to Krishna, Krishna will make him dance, that person, and the mission would be executed like Arjuna danced to the tunes of Krishna. But the mission is being run by Krishna. So Prabhupada told you, you simply become pure. Krishna wants to spread this movement and it will spread. And the person who becomes pure, he becomes instrument. So simply purity is the basis. So you simply remain pure and that would be the force for the movement. And no need to resort to artificial slogans or advertisements. So Prabhupada was very plain. He is writing lectures in Bhagavad Gita, although most of them do not even know what is Bhagavad Gita. Will you bring your friends? Prabhupada had asked. Yes, Howard had promised. Monday evening. The summer evening was warm, and in the storefront, the back windows and the front door were opened wide. Young men, several of them dressed in black denims and button-down sport shirts with broad, dull stripes, had left their worn sneakers by the front door and were now sitting on the floor. Most of them were from the Lower East Side. No one had had to go to great trouble to come there. The little room was barren. No pictures, no furniture, no rug, not even a chair. Only a few plain straw mats. So some straw mats were there, otherwise just you have to sit on the floor directly. A single bulb hung from the ceiling into the center of the room. It was 7 o'clock and about a dozen people had gathered. When Bhaktivedanta Swami suddenly opened a side door and entered the room. He wasn't wearing a shirt, and the saffron cloth that draped his torso left his arms and some of his chest bare. We know the sannyas cloth that the sannyasis, if you would have seen, they have. So Prabhupada was just having that sannyas cloth over him. His complexion was smooth golden brown, and as they washed him, his head shaven, his ears long lobed, and his aspect grave, he seemed like pictures they had seen of the Buddha in meditation. He was old yet erect in his posture, fresh and radiant. His forehead was decorated with the yellowish clay markings of the Vaishnavas. Bhaktivedanta Swami recognized big bearded Howard and smiled. You have brought your friends. Yes, Howard answered in his loud, resonant voice. Ah, very good. Bhaktivedanta Swami stepped out of his white shoes, sat down on a thin mat. So what is going to happen? 7 o'clock program. Faced his congregation and indicated they could all be seated. He distributed several pairs of brass cymbals, we call kartals, brass cymbals, and briefly demonstrated the rhythm 1, 2, 3. He began playing a startling ringing sound and began singing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now it was the audience's turn. Chant, he told them. Some already knew. Gradually, the others caught on, and after a few rounds, all were chanting together. As Bhaktivedanta Swami chanted in his own inner ecstasy, he observed his motley congregation. He was breaking ground in a new land now. As the hand cymbals rang, the lead and the response of the Hare Krishna mantra swelled, filling the evening. Some neighbors were annoyed. Puerto-Rican children enchanted appeared at the door and window looking. Twilight came. Exotic it was, yet anyone could see that a Swami was raising an ancient prayer in place of God. This wasn't rock or jazz. He was a holy man, a Swami, making a public religious demonstration. But the combination was strange. An old Indian Swami chanting an ancient mantra with a storefront full of young American hippies singing along. So, although other religious preachers had also gone, what they were able to attract were some old people and mostly old women who were widows like that. And this is how they would have their congregation and sustain their preaching work. But for the first time, an old Swami was not attracting the old men, but young people, hippies, many of them intellectuals who were seeking the answers of life, and many other crazy heads, derelicts, drug addicts. But all these young people, weird people, it was much more weird how they were attracted to an old Indian Swami. Bhaktivedanta Swami sang on, his shaven head held high, tilted, his body trembling slightly with emotion. Confidently, he let the mantra absorb in pure devotion, and they responded. More passers-by were drawn to the front window and open door. Some jeered, but the chanting was too strong. Within the sound of the kirtan, even the car horns were a faint staccato. The vibration of auto engines and the rumble of trucks continued, but in the distance now unnoticed. Gathered under the dim electric light in the bare room, the group chanted after their leader, growing gradually from a feeble, hesitant chorus to an approximate harmony of voices. They continued clapping and chanting, putting into it whatever they could, in hopes of discovering its secrets. They were convinced this chanting has got some kind of secret. So these people had tried so many things. They had listened to other people, mystic mantras of the Upanishads, and drugs were a regular thing for them, but all these things were not giving them what they actually wanted. So they were somehow very much hopeful, and anyway, there was nothing to lose. He was simply requesting them, just chant this mantra and nothing else. So there was no loss, but with great hope that this will take them to a different platform of consciousness, they tried to follow and respond to Swami's chant. In hopes of discovering its secrets, they all chanted very nicely. This Swami was not simply giving some 5-minute sample demonstration. For the moment, he was their leader, their guide in an unknown realm. Bhaktivedanta Swami had encountered a similar group on the Bauri, and he knew this group wasn't experiencing the mantra in the proper disciplined reverence and knowledge. So in the Bauri, the skid row, the place of the bumps, this group was very much similar to them, the participants of the hippie movement. Not very straight people, regular people. And he was knowing that they are not chanting mantra in the proper way. In proper way, you have to have knowledge and you have to have great awe and reverence, love and respect, because this holy name of Krishna is Krishna himself, who has incarnated in the form of sound. So personally, God descends on your tongue when you chant Hare Krishna and enters your ears and through ears into our hearts when we chant this holy vibration. So God personally is coming. I am making a personal contact with God. And how much attentive and receptive and loving I should be. But they were not knowing this. So he was aware that they are not able to chant perfectly in proper discipline, reverence and knowledge. But he let them chant in their own way. In time, their submission to the spiritual sound, their purification, and their enlightenment and ecstasy in chanting and hearing Hare Krishna would come. He stopped the kirtana. The chanting had swept back the world, but now the Lower East Side rushed in again. The children at the door began to chatter and laugh. Cars and trucks made their rumbling heard once more, and a voice shouted from a nearby apartment, demanding quiet. It was now past 7:30. Half an hour had elapsed. His lecture is very basic. So this was Prabhupada's formula. As soon as people would come, he would do half an hour kirtan. And Prabhupada told that is very important. Krishna tells, Bhaktya mam abhijanati, only a devotee can know me. So unless somebody practices little devotion, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. And apart from this, the minds are so much disturbed that it is not possible to focus and realize the spiritual subject matter. So Prabhupada's standard principle was half an hour kirtan is must in the beginning, and then he would lecture, followed by another half an hour of kirtan. So Prabhupada told, unless somebody listens this half an hour of Kirtan, he cannot very patiently and submissively understand this knowledge. His lecture is very basic, and yet for the restless youth, heavily philosophical. Some can't take it, and they rise suddenly upon hearing the Swami's first words. Put on their shoes at the front door and return to the street. Others have left as soon as they saw the singing was over. Still, this is the best group yet. A few of the Bowery congregation are present. The boys from the Mott Street are here. What is Mott Street? Where Howard Wheeler was living with Keith and other friends. And they are specifically looking for a guru. Many in the group have already read Bhagavad Gita, and they are not too proud to hear and admit that they did not understand it. So even at that time, although most of them were not knowing, but some had heard of Bhagavad Gita and they had tried to read it, but it was too difficult for them to understand. Eek, yeah, shrieking, little girls disturb the whole block. In the distance, a man shouts from his window, "Get out of here! Get out of here!" Bhaktivedanta Swami says, "Ask them not to make noise." Roy, who is one of the boys in the temple, "The man is chasing the kids now." Bhaktivedanta Swami, "Yes, yes, these children are making a disturbance. Ask them." Roy, "Yes, that's what. The man's chasing them right now." Bhaktivedanta Swami, "They are making noises." Roy, "Yes, he's chasing them now." The man chases the children away, but they'll be back. You can't chase the children off the street, they live there. And the big dog never stops barking. Row, row, row. And who can stop the cars? The cars are always there. Prabhupada uses the cars to give an example. So it's a very nice example. When a car momentarily comes into our vision on the 2nd Avenue, so 2nd Avenue, the street opposite this Matchless gift shop, was one of the busiest streets of that area, and trucks, cars and so many automobiles would cross that area, and the sound of traffic was very, very heavy. So devotee sees everything in connection with Krishna consciousness. So thus Prabhupada, without missing his point, he took the example of traffic, the cars itself. Prabhupada explained, when a car momentarily comes into our vision on the 2nd Avenue, we certainly don't think it had no existence before we saw it, or that it ceases to exist once it has passed from the view. Similarly, when Krishna goes from this planet to another, it doesn't mean he no longer exists, although it may appear that way. Actually, he has only left our sight. Krishna and his incarnations constantly appear and disappear on innumerable planets throughout the innumerable universes of the material creation. This is Krishna consciousness. So in order to attain platform of immortality, one only needs scientifically understand the science of the philosophy of Krishna. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatpatha. My birth activities are transcendental. They don't follow material laws. And if one simply understands what is the meaning of understanding, he is thoroughly convinced and understands the whole logic behind it. So in this way, a person who understands technically, scientifically and is convinced of it, Tyakva deham punarjanma nayati. He does not take any more birth. So Krishna may appear to die, but Krishna does not die. Krishna simply disappears out of sight. Just like the car is passing in front of our shop, Prabhupada explained. And we don't think this car was not existing. And neither do we think car will stop to exist. No. It became visible, now it has gone. It has become invisible, but car is existing. In a similar fashion, Krishna is always existing. There are innumerable universes. In one universe, Krishna has lifted Govardhana. He puts it down. In another universe, he is putting it down. The third universe, putting it down. Some universe he is lifting. In this way, Krishna's Leelas are eternal. All the Leelas of Krishna are happening in some or the other universe at every time. This is called Nitya Leela. We want to enjoy some activity, but we cannot keep on doing it always. But Krishna can keep on doing that activity eternally. This is spiritual life. Material life means life of boredom. But spiritual life, thus we can understand there is a difference. Hare Krishna Mahamantra is no ordinary mantra. This is another thing which offers great faith to the neophyte followers. Nobody you will find in the world who is singing the same song for a long time, for many, many years. Nobody you will find he is hearing the same story or he or she is watching the same movie over and over again. The greatest fans also are able to watch movie 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 times. There is a record to that end, but not more than that. But here we see in Krishna consciousness, same Krishna Katha, same pastimes of Krishna, the devotees are explaining and hearing. Every day, day after day, the same thing they are hearing, and their pleasure increases in hearing Krishna Katha. So much so that the examples are there that morning, evening, night, continuously the Goswamis in Vrindavan and everybody, and they are just hearing on and on the same thing. Parishit Maharaj heard for 7 days continuously, and Shukdev Goswami kept on explaining. So this is the proof of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna Mahamantra. The devotees are chanting continuously day in and day out. And their pleasure is increasing. Not that they are getting bored. The more you chant, the more your pleasure increases. Thus, this sound is no ordinary sound. These kathas, these stories are not some mundane stories. Their nature is completely different from the stories and sounds that we see here. Thus, we understand they are completely spiritual. And the person they represent, they indicate, he is also thus completely a spiritual personality. So thus we can understand this is spiritual existence, where there is no boredom, where you need not change the activity, but the same activity becomes increasingly pleasurable. So Prabhupada explained this very important understanding about Krishna. Krishna is always existing, but he simply appears and disappears from the vision. He is still stressing the same point. Whatever you do in Krishna consciousness, however little it may be, is eternally good for you. Yet now, more than uptown or on the Bowery, he is calling his hearers to take to Krishna consciousness fully and become devotees. He assures them. So it doesn't matter what a person was doing before, what sinful activities. A person may not be perfect at first, but if he is engaged in the service, he will be purified. So Prabhupada is telling, do not worry. Whatever little you do in Krishna consciousness, Krishna is eternal, his service is eternal. So whatever little you have done in Krishna consciousness, that has been added to your permanent account. So Prabhupada told, it doesn't matter what a person was doing before, what sinful activities. A person may not be perfect at first, but if he is engaged in the service, then he will be purified. So many times Maya brings these illusions into the life of devotee. And devotee suddenly, when he's trying to advance in Krishna consciousness, there is so much lust in the body, so much greed. And the devotee thinks, so I cannot do this. I am very fallen person, I am very sinful. This is a big trap of Maya. This means lack of faith in Krishna. What I am following, I am directly contacting Krishna. Is Krishna not powerful enough to purify my heart? Krishna has created our heart. Krishna has created the things which contaminate the heart when we desire, and Krishna is supreme purifier also. All the energies are in Krishna's control. So where can any darkness stand when sun rises? Similarly, when Krishna wishes, where can our impurity stand in the heart? So there's a big trap. Nobody is unqualified. Although in illusion, people think like that and they drop off from Krishna consciousness. This philosophy is nice, but I am not qualified. No. If simply we have desire, how much ever addicted we may be to bad habits, we will come out of everything if we have faith, if we keep on sticking to the process. Rather, it is meant for the most fallen people. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to offer the highest thing he finds. He found at his time in Bengal who were the most wretched people, and he converted them into pure devotees of Krishna. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's incarnation is especially for that. He finds the most wretched person and makes him most exalted devotee. So we should never fall for this. Just like we start riding a bicycle, it looks like impossible thing to drive. And we think, well, it is not possible. 2 wheels, it's very less. At least 3 should be there. But when a person tries, it becomes very easy thing, which is impossible thing. It doesn't move at all. And then leaving the hands, a person is able to ride the bicycle very, very easily. Similarly, Krishna consciousness may appear very difficult in the beginning if we have got many, many material addictions. But just like cycle, we rode very easily. With perseverance, we will be able to completely surpass all the things in the past. So I request all of you, please never get discouraged. Never get discouraged. Krishna we are contacting directly. Everything will be more than compensated. And then Prabhupada gives very nice examples. Suddenly a Bauri derelict enters, whistling and drunkenly shouting. The audience remains seated, not knowing what to make of it. So a drunk has entered. Prabhupada is giving class and then he's shouting. And everyone is surprised. What should we do now? And what happens next? What Prabhupada says, how do they deal with the situation? It's very instructive phenomena. We will try to understand tomorrow. So thank you so much for hearing the beginnings of the first virtual temple of Krishna consciousness movement. Now is the time for winner. Yesterday's winner is Abhijit Singha. Many congratulations to Abhijit if you are listening. Very nicely he has shared that he will do soulful chanting and will be more tolerant than trees as Prabhupada was. Yes, this is very nice application. We can try to do this. So thank you very much Abhijit for sharing your realizations. I request all of you also, after hearing, please contemplate and write down your realization and application, how you can apply this learning in your life. And you can please write this in the comment section. Not in the chat box. Once we close this session, comments would appear. You can please write over there. And among the first 50 people who have written the comments, we will be choosing another lucky winner. And please keep your YouTube notifications on. We'll reply to your realization application comment. And then you can send us your postal address. We'll be sending you a very nice gift. So all of you, I request, kindly participate. And please do try to share this video. Try to comment and try to like it. Because that way we can help Prabhupada touch many people. So please help us in this endeavor. We'll meet tomorrow again. Hare Krishna.